Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack Network. I'm your host, Dylan Clemons, and my co host today is Joe Bond, founder of Fantasy Six Pack. And we are continuing our training camp check in shows where we are going around to all 32 NFL teams, interviewing a beat writer or reporter on what they've seen at training camp. In this episode, we're discussing the Los Angeles Chargers, and here helping us do so is Eric Smith, editorial director for the Chargers. Eric, appreciate you giving us your time today. It's such a busy part of the year. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you guys having me on and happy to talk about the Bolts.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Before we jump into the interview, I just want to remind everyone, please hit that like button, please subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell for notifications so you know when a new video drops. And then head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans to become an all-access member. That's where you get our award-winning rankings, draft cheat sheets, and F6P Discord, where you can ask all your custom league advice to anyone on the Fantasy Six Pack staff, and that truly is the best part. You can also save a little cash right now by using promo code F6PNFL24 for 15% off as well. But without further ado, Joe, how about you jump into the first question we have for Eric here?
Yeah, so a lot of change on this team this last offseason. The one of the very few constants is the quarterback. So Justin Herbert's where we're going to start. How has he looked this offseason? With all the change going around him and this new offense that's getting implemented.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. Herbert is a constant in the sense that he's left over from last year, but he's also a constant in the sense that like he is the pillar of the franchise. I think like on the field, he's obviously the face of the franchise. He's a franchise quarterback. He is the guy, right? So like he is he's the guy. And he's looked good. He looked good in the offseason program, minicamp OTAs. The main thing I think back then was just kind of learning Greg Roman's offense because I've heard it's pretty complex. They talked a lot they described it a lot in terms of like coats of paint, where it's like, okay, we got to go through like 3 or 4 coats of paint trying to install it again. So that was where we were at in June after minicamp. Came here for camp, and he looked fantastic in the first week or so of camp. And then he had the foot injury, so he didn't practice for 2 weeks. Everyone knows he was in a boot. He came back to practice this week, Monday, looked good. But then his performance, like Tuesday, Wednesday especially, and then yesterday on Thursday was just phenomenal. I had someone tell me on Wednesday that was the best practice they've ever seen from Justin Herbert. So that's an indication of where he's at right now. And you hope that he's going to only continue to get better, right? As he gets more familiar with the offense, as he gets more practice time. Like I said, he didn't practice for 2 weeks. Like I called it phenomenal. Like I'm running out of adjectives. Jim Harbaugh said yesterday he's running out of adjectives to describe the throws. So like he's looked good. He's looked great. I think as we go into the season, the main thing to watch is how much does the running game help him? Because I think we can kind of all agree the last couple of years there's been a lot put on his shoulders. And at times it's felt like he's had to play maybe like hero ball a little bit, where if he didn't get it done by himself, it wasn't going to get done. So having some sort of running game to help him out, the offensive line, I think it's going to be pretty improved. It's going to be a good unit. So if those two things can help him out, he doesn't have to do it all, and then he can still elevate his play, right, and be pretty lethal.
Yeah, so you're talking about this running game, and I got a little side question here about this. So with Roman there and Harbaugh, the offense is going to change. We know that, but one of the reasons why we've liked Herbert in the fantasy community is like just the pure volume that he was passing the ball. Do you see that volume dropping to the point where we have to maybe be like hesitate drafting him, or is the volume going to drop, but maybe like the efficiency bumps up and then it just sort of settles?
Yeah, I think the second option you mentioned is what we hope the end result is, because his volume has been so high the last couple of years because it's needed to be. He's needed to throw it 40 or 50 times a game. But that's because we haven't been able to run the ball. We've been in the bottom whatever of run stats the last couple of years. But if he only throws it 30 times a game, right? But he's completing 21 passes, for 350 because he's more efficient with it because it's play action. He has the threat of the run game, maybe more deep shots. I think that's the ideal scenario for what this offense looks like.
Sure.
Perfect.
Cool. All right.
Looking into the backfield now, out goes Austin Eckler, and in comes J.K. Dobbins, and in comes Gus Edwards. They also drafted Kamani Vidal later in the draft as well. Eric, I'm just going to ask you, how do you see this backfield shaking out in snap share? And then a follow-up, has J.K. Dobbins looked healthy? Because that's something he's really dealt with his whole career, is injuries so far. So,
yeah. I'll answer the second part first. Dobbins has looked healthy, but they've had a plan for him, I think is the best way to say it. He'll practice 2 days and then he'll get a rest day because there's no need for him to be grinding it out right now. Like he's obviously going to be ready for the season. He's not going to play in the preseason game. He didn't play in the first two. He's not going to play in Dallas. So there's no need for him to play in game. The whole goal for him is to be ready for week one.
sure.
And it seems like the plan they've had is going to make that happen. In terms of the load share, I don't really know, but I don't think they know, and I don't think Greg Roman knows either because we've asked Greg about it, and he'll say, like, I think his quote was like, "I don't know," but whoever has the hot hand that game, that's what I'm going to roll with. And Greg obviously has familiarity with both of these guys, right, from Baltimore, so he told us exactly what he apparently tells them, which is exactly that, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna give you guys both carries, but whoever has the hot hand, that's obviously who we're gonna go with today. So I think over the course of the season, maybe it'll be somewhat equal, but on a game by game basis, we don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely totally fair. Joe, let's get into these wide receivers, man.
So one other thing, because we actually had a question in our Discord, like, is Vidal like on the bubble, like for real? Like that's the rumor that we keep hearing.
I don't know. I mean, he obviously looked really good in the preseason game. Who was that against? The Rams on Saturday.
Yeah.
He did not play in the first one, so that's like he's definitely making progress. I'm not going to speculate like who's going to be on the team or not on the team.
Right.
Like, but like he's looked good. If he has another good game tomorrow in Dallas, that's probably going to help his chances. But I don't know. I mean, he's definitely in the mix for sure.
Yeah, just interesting. I just thought I'd get your take on it. No, I tried. So the receivers, just another crazy group of unknowns, it feels like, really. So Josh Palmer is kind of sitting there as the holdover. Quentin Johnston sitting there too, but he was sort of disappointing last year. They brought in Ladd McConkey. Who's been the guy for Herbert this offseason?
There hasn't been one, and I know you want like a for sure answer, but there hasn't been a guy, and I think that's probably similar to what we said with like Dobbins and Edwards. Like maybe it's by committee a little bit. I think that's what's going to happen with the receiver group too, where if you get to the end of the year, certainly one guy is going to be like lead the team in catches or yards, but on a game by game basis, it's kind of a crapshoot to kind of see like how the game goes. Herbert obviously has the best rapport with Palmer because they've been together for a couple of years, and Palmer, while he's maybe not like an elite receiver, he's really good at a lot of things. So like he's just a steady, good receiver. If you ask me just for the past week, who's been Herbert's favorite target, it's been Quentin Johnston. Like he has looked phenomenal this past week. And when Herbert come back, Quentin has kind of like taken a step with him and it really elevated his game. and looked really good. Now, I know Quentin was a first round pick last year. His rookie season didn't go how he wanted it to go. I can tell you for sure he's a better player now than he was last year. Now,
All right.
does that mean he's going to reach everyone outside like crazy expectation? We'll see, but he's definitely making progress. And that progress is not going to go from like here way up to here in 2 weeks, right? It's going to be gradual progress, but I can
Mhm.
tell you that he's making it. Like I'm seeing it. Harbaugh's seeing it. Harbaugh talked about it the other day. Like the other people who are around the team all the time, like we all see it. So I can clearly tell you that Quentin is a better player now than he was last year. He just had to kind of deal with the disappointment, I guess, of his rookie year. But I like him. I think he's gonna hopefully surprise some people in year 2.
Love to hear that.
I
That's
like to
great
hear
news.
that.
Absolutely. Looking at the tight end position, Eric, this is in fantasy football. The tight end position is very thin with how many solid players there are. Do you see the tight end having a big role in this offense? Could we finally see Hayden Hurst break out a little bit as a pass catcher, or do you see someone else out of this kind of hodgepodge of guys they got going on here?
No, I think like pass catching wise, like Hurst and Will Dissly are probably the 2 guys that you probably want to look at. Maybe Hurst a little bit more just because he has
Okay.
more production, I think, as a pass catcher. I know you don't want to hear it for fantasy reasons, but like they really brought in Will Dissly to block, and
Mhm.
like he's a phenomenal blocker. And I know that doesn't get you any fantasy points, but like that's really what this offense needs. Um, I mean, I could spend 5 minutes telling you why that's such a big part of the offense because we talked about the run game struggling
Yep.
the last
Right.
couple of years. Like the tight ends have not helped a lot in that area, so that's why obviously they bring in Will. I think on like a 3-year deal. So, both guys are probably going to catch, some passes, but I know the tight end group overall. Like if you're looking for top tier numbers, it's probably not those guys. But that's not really the mold that the Chargers are looking for from those 2. Like you need them to catch
Sure.
passes, yeah, but they need them to block and kind of get down and dirty a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
No, that makes sense. Yep. All right. So we asked one question to everybody who comes on these check-in shows for each team, and that question is, who's the player that you've seen in camp that is going to surprise people, good or bad, that fantasy managers kind of need to know about?
That's a good question. Like I just talked about Quentin, and that's probably one of the
Yeah.
answers on the team. But I'll pick another person. I'll go with Lad McConkey. And maybe that's not going to be like a huge surprise because he was a 2nd-round pick. Like he played at
Mhm.
Georgia. Like he's not some 7th-round guy. But I can tell you that like he's developed a really good rapport with Herbert. And obviously losing Keenan Allen is big
Yes.
is a large hole to fill, right? Like can't overstate that.
Mhm.
And Keenan did a lot of his like fantastic work on 3rd down. Like I'm not telling you that Lad McConkey is going to be Keenan Allen on 3rd down, but to me it seemed like if there was someone to fill that role of kind of being like a shifty guy, a great route runner, Lad is very quick. He can get in and out of breaks like really, really well. It wouldn't surprise me if Herbert looks a lot his way on 3rd down. I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I'd probably pick Lad, and he's not really going to surprise us because we know him, But maybe people on the outside, like maybe he's a guy to have your eye on.
Yeah, I like to hear that
Cool.
for sure. Has Lad just kind of slid into the slot for the most part in this training camp, Eric?
No, he kind of lined up all over.
All over? Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what Keenan
And
did too.
yeah, and really like our wide receiver coach here, Sanjay Lal, he wants the receivers to know every position, because if someone goes down, you gotta
Right.
adjust on the fly. So I'm sure by the end of the year there's going to be some receiver who spends the majority of the time in the slot, but on a game by game basis, like people are going to be moving around and shifting around. So yeah, watch out for Ladd, and then like I said, I think Q is hopefully in for a big year.
Right on.
Fantastic. All right, man. Well, so that's gonna do it for this show. Eric, I want to thank you for coming on. Before we close up shop, let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, I obviously work for the Chargers, so you can find all my work on Chargers.com.
Awesome,
Perfect.
man. Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we can do it again.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See ya. All right, so that's it for the Chargers training camp report. I want to thank Eric again for joining us. This was a lot of great information, a lot of insight into the team, and hopefully you can take it into your drafts and gain an advantage. Before we go, just remind everybody, hit that subscribe, the like button, leave those reviews. We appreciate it. And check out the rest of these team preview check-ins and the playlist we got here on YouTube and probably Spotify and Apple as well. So check you all later.